Yo, what is up guys? This is Drino Beats, and in this video we're going to do a tutorial on how to make an epic NF type beat similar to these.
Oh, ain't that something? Drums came in, you ain't see that coming. Hands on my hell better, ain't no way around it. I'm plug the traits that I want. They say I can't afford what it costs, but I manifest. I'm just fulfilling my destiny. I'm just fulfilling my destiny. Tell me what you think now. 2 records in the bag, I ain't done no. What's coming next year? Let me hear the drum roll.
All right, in this video we're going to do things just a little differently. We're just going to start by going over some of the elements and the instruments that go into making an epic NF type beat, and then we will apply them to an actual cook up. So if you don't want this, feel free to skip ahead to whatever time we pinned in the comments. But if you're willing to just put in a few extra minutes of time, I guarantee you'll learn something new and be able to make a much better epic NF type beat yourself. Using the information I'm about to teach you, I made this beat in about 20 minutes. All right, so let's get the education out of the way. So in doing research for this beat, I did 3 things. I listened to hours of Tommy Profit videos on YouTube. Those who don't know who Tommy Profit is, just Google him. He's the producer behind a lot of NF beats, and he deserves way more credit. Like, just go watch his YouTube videos after this one, of course. I listened to several epic NF songs, again, going all the way back to 2016. And 3, I scoured the internet for sounds, plugins, effects that you guys can have that I'm gonna have a link to below in the description. If you download that, it's completely free. We just truly would appreciate a sub in return. All right, so digging deeper. As far as elements go for an NF epic type beat, here's what you got to do first. First, you have to use real instruments, like commonly found instruments in live symphony orchestras, similar to the picture you have on the screen. So some of the most epic instruments within this live symphony orchestra are going to be your strings, violin, you got your cellos. He doesn't really use too many horns, although it is an epic instrument. The drums for sure, the cymbals, the crashes, the list goes on. Use these as a starting point. Secondly, you have to layer these instruments to fill the frequency spectrum. He doesn't just do a violin and that's it. No, he does a violin, he does a cello, he does bass lines, he has 808s, he has choirs. You have to fill the spectrum with different frequencies. And third, this rule is undisputable. You have to use either some vocal chops or a choir. Choirs are one of the most epic sounding instruments. I don't know how else to emphasize that to you as strongly as possible. The reason for this is because psychologically speaking, it just reminds people of church. It is a godly sound. All right, some of the final elements: use heavy bass lines to lead up to the drop. Try to steer clear of most of the generic trap drum sounds. Like NF doesn't really use a lot of 808 Mafia snares. Lastly, try to be unique with your hi-hat patterns, but do not make them super dominant and distracting. So for instance, here's some of the hi-hats in his song Remember This. All right, last thing before the cook up, here's some instruments and sounds that you guys can use. So violins, like I mentioned, just use anything in a live orchestra. Violins are awesome because they add tension to the beats. Seriously, think about all the movies. When do violins come in? When somebody's about to get murdered. Cellos are epic. Piano is very epic. Brass, especially brass hits. Crashes and cymbals used to emphasize like the drop of a bar. Love it. Choirs, like I said, you have to use choirs. You can't not have choirs. Here are the plugins that we're using: Virgin Choir, Chamber Orchestra 2, Purity, Silent, and I wish I could use Requiem, but one day I'll save up enough for that. But if you really want to take shortcut and pay money to do it, get Requiem, bro. It's the craziest choir plugin ever. All right, finally, on to the cook-up. Okay, so to start, we'll be using the Chamber Orchestra's 2 plugin. So if you open it up, we are using the violin section to start our main melody. Here are the notes we have for that. If you want to add more tension, and here's what we're going to do too. If you click this middle one and it says tremolo or tremolo, it'll sound way crazier. Like, listen to this. Oh yeah, that builds so much in it. It sounds like something crazy about to happen. All right, so to make our counter melody, we're using the same orchestra plugin, or Chamber Orchestra 2 plugin, using the cello section. All right, for our second counter melody, we are using Purity, the strings arco low preset. Together, those sound like this. For another counter melody or main melody, as what I said earlier, the golden rule for making an epic NF type beat, we're using a choir. So this is the Virgin Choir plugin. It is free. I highly recommend you go get it. For the first one, the main articulation we're going to is the E. So copying those notes and using the same Virgin Choir plugin, we are using the A articulation. Too epic, man. All right, and together both of those sound like this. For the effects for the choir, we are just using wider and boosting it just so you can hear it more in both ears, adding some reverb, cutting out the low frequencies, and boosting some of the mid to low frequencies as well. We're going to use a bass line to lead up to the drop. The one we're using is Silent 1, the BS Tube bass preset. Here are the notes. Now that the melodies are out of the way, we can add some crazy effects. This is the Inception brass hit, which is in that kit I mentioned below. This is another brass hit that I made by layering a few things together. It's also in that kit below. Lastly, we're using a vocal chop Vox. Altogether, the melodies, counter melodies, and the sound effects sound like this. On to the drums. For the clap, we're using the clap that you can find in DT or side piece of drum kit called the gangway clap. Now, I know I said originally trying not to use too many generic trap sounds, but for this one, we're kind of using a trap-ish type snare by layering these two together. So you got the I'm Rich Tom snare, and I just used one from a Dream Chasers kit called the NYC snare 2. Together, those two sound like this. For the hi-hat pattern, I am setting this one using a Ronnie J hi-hat 5 to a 1/3 step. Now when the drop comes, I'm just gonna have another 2-step hi-hat pattern using this hi-hat. It's a lot more subtle, so you won't really hear it, but this helps the tempo keep flowing. We're also gonna be using 2 separate hi-hats. One is just a Rock Boys open hat, and we're also using one from DT's kit called Beg Me. Together, those 2 open hats sound like this. For the kick, we are using a rack kick. Here's the pattern for that. For the 808, we are using an 808 from DT Side Pieces kit called Arrow. Here are the notes. Lastly, we have a crazy rise coming in. It sounds like, I guess you call it like Batman Dark Knight type. And all together, the drums sound like this. And with the brass hits and the Vox, it sounds crazy. It sounds like this. Okay, and as far as the layout goes, we're just gonna have the violins coming in first. Then we have the choir and cello as well as the brass hits. Then in this section, we are the counter melody violin, or the second violins, as well as the bass line coming in. And right before the drop, we'll have the open and hi-hats come in and the crazy movie effect rise. Once the drop happens, this will obviously be the chorus. And then you have the verse coming in. And you have a drop out here, and then you have the bridge coming in again. All right, I believe that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and now you know how to make some crazy epic NF Tommy Prophet type beats yourself. You guys have any questions or any suggestions for us as Tenor Ghost to make future videos on, please comment them below. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.